Hello, and thank you for joining us for the World Media Group panel on the future of travel marketing. And I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to everyone who is joining us from overseas. We literally have people from all four corners of the globe, and you're very welcome. I'm Samantha Adams. I'm VP of Advertising Sales at BBC Studios, and we're a member of the World Media Group. The World Media Group is an alliance of trusted media brands, and I think you can see the names at the bottom of the screen, and we're all united by our vision for trusted and renowned journalism. The independent editorial excellence that is the heart of all World Media Group brands is only made possible by the support of advertisers, and many of these are trying to reach travellers, and in particularly affluent travellers. So the format of today will be a panel discussion on the future of traveller and what that means to marketeers, followed by an audience Q&A. So please do write your questions in the comment box and we'll come to them at the end. So without further ado, let me introduce my panel of travel experts. To start with, we have Heledd Owen, who is Director of Marketing, Tourism and Business at the Welsh Government. I'm really excited to have Heledd with us, as she's the winner of the Grand Prix prize from the World Media Awards for the Wales to the World campaign, so I'm sure we'll be talking about that later. And she leads Cymru Wales as a master brand, marketing Wales as a place to visit, invest and work. We then have Pat Riddell, award-winning editor of National Geographic Traveller, and he has overseen the launch, a growth and expansion from print to digital and events and partnerships. And then we have Max Askwith, who is a Global Innovation Partner at Denstu International. And Max works within the Media Innovation Centre of Excellence, the Future Lab. So to start with the panel, we would like to look at the overview of the current state of the travel market. The travel market really has been through a few challenging years, and I wondered what changes, if any, you've seen to people's travel patterns and behaviours. And Max, can I give that one to you to start with?
Yeah, so I come at this from the kind of media agency angle, and at Denstu we have got a massive consumer survey that we run every year. So it's 400,000 odd people in 70 countries around the world, and it looks at lifestyle, your interests, your media habits. And so I've looked at that data from the latest survey, so 2023, as well as also looking back to pre-pandemic to give us a bit of a comparison of some of the things that may have changed. And I think one of the things that we've noticed about travel in particular is a kind of stabilization of demand to international rather than domestic. And obviously that has kind of been a bit in flux over the past few years, whether it's limitations on travel, whether it's watching the purse strings or other things, and we've certainly seen that kind of stabilize quite a lot. There are kind of small boosts of kind of unexpected demand here and there. There's a bit of what we would call like revenge travel. We are treating ourselves, we're trying to capture back the excitement, experience of traveling that maybe we've missed out on a little bit over the past few years. But also there's this sort of trend of combining work and travel, kind of workcation, which is a phrase or a term I'm not a huge fan of, but we're certainly seeing that kind of peak demand here and there as well. And I think from a traveller audience perspective, a good indicator of where we are is passengers moving through airports. And for the most part, I'm talking from a global perspective, so of course there are local nuances, but for the most part we're nearly back to where we were pre-pandemic 2019, and certainly in the States, a lot of the airports there are already exceeding some of those numbers. So I think we're seeing slightly different change behaviour, slightly kind of more kind of revenge travel that's coming up here and there, but generally speaking, getting back towards where we were before.
Brilliant. And Pat, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think reflecting what Max said, certainly in the UK, there's been that post-COVID demand for travel, a pent-up demand, and people making up for lost time, if you like, having had a couple of years when they weren't able to travel, they've been ticking off some of those bucket list destinations that they, I think, hadn't done and thought, we better get out there and make those things happen. And I think with that, there's been a drive towards experience-based travel. So whether they're traveling to a restaurant for the chef's table, or they're just getting the Taylor Swift tickets and heading off to the US or Europe, those kind of things, or whether they're, the kind of the immersive experiences at the high end of the market, where people like Black Tomato are offering 12-day James Bond assignments. So I think it's a 12-day journey through 5 countries costing £60,000 a head. Or there's a White Desert Antarctica kind of retreat, if you like, which is a similar sort of price. So you've got very high-end experience kind of experiences that people are looking to travel for, as well as the more sort of attainable, achievable.
So there seems to be more of a treat yourself mindset. So how should travel marketeers tap into that, Max?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we can be ambitious, I guess, in what we're maybe talking about to consumers, to potential travellers. Not being afraid to suggest something that, as you were talking about, is maybe slightly kind of higher value or higher cost. There's a number of different things as well, and certainly within some of the data we've seen with the consumer survey, one of the changes we've seen over the past few years in terms of how people kind of start to plan their trips. We all kind of plan our holidays more or less similarly. We talk about the logistics of it. We talk about it's a kind of a collaborative process often when we're traveling with other people. But we've also seen a bit of a shift from using kind of facts to base where you choose to go onto feelings, which is a bit more of a slightly different kind of way. So we're thinking about the treat yourself angle. You can be a bit more emotional in what you're talking about as a travel operator. You can use different media formats to communicate things a bit differently, rather than just talking about price. Tell human stories, tell stories that are going to really kind of interest people, and maybe try and push towards more of that kind of feelings-based choices.
So Pat, from an editorial perspective, you're obviously looking to inspire people, but you also are drawing on their feelings and emotions. And I know you've just published the call list for 2024. So how did you select those destinations, and were there any surprises on the list?
We've got 30 destinations on the call list, which I think we've spent probably 6 months compiling, mainly new air routes, rewilding initiatives. There's new national parks. Basically, there's a newsy kind of angle to all of them, so there's a good reason to visit them next year or in the years to come. There's a good mixture, I think. Certainly, there's all the UK nations and quite a lot of Europe in there, as well as Africa, Asia, and the Americas. There's destinations people will be very familiar with, I think, as well as places like Sierra Leone, which has a new airport. Madagascar's got a new UNESCO heritage site. So there's that good mix, I think, of destinations that people are more familiar with, like I say, and some of those off the beaten track places.
Cool. So any that piqued your interest?
Well, like I say, Sierra Leone is one I think people will be more interested in terms of taking those new kind of trips. Wales we have in there, as I say, is one of the UK destinations, and there's a lot to choose from.
So Wales is obviously a brilliant opportunity to bring you into the conversation, Heledd. So as marketing Wales as a destination, you obviously have so many countries with breathtaking scenery, with amazing heritage, historical buildings. So how do you really create that unique sense of Welsh identity in your marketing?
I guess it's about capturing the essence of what it feels like when you're physically there, when we market. And I think our consumers are looking for, obviously, like you say, the breathtaking, world-class scenery that we have. the culture. But it's also about showing the scale of what you can do within a few days in Wales. So you can be, mountain to sea in an hour. You can be in a museum looking at a Monet in the morning, being on a mountain in the afternoon. And also, I think our consumers are looking for that mix of old and new. For example, we have in South Wales, on the old site of the Tower Colliery, we have one of the fastest zip lines in the world. So it's the combination of that old, heritage culture with the new. And another example would be, I think last week there was an immersive light show in one of the castles. So I think it's about that. And also, obviously, we have the Welsh language and all of the heritage that comes with that. So it's the combination of those things.
Brilliant. And I'd love to talk to you specifically about the Wales to the World campaign, which was a massive success for you. And I found it really interesting that you'd obviously use Wales being part of the World Cup finals as a chance to draw visitors to Wales. So how did you make that decision and why did you make the decision to choose an event in another country to market Wales?
Well, it was about the 5 billion global audience, the World Cup. But having said that, it's a crowded space as well. So we knew that we need to do something really, really special. I think we understood as well that it was a way of showing a point of differentiation between Wales and the other nations within the UK, because we were playing as Wales. We've got a strong track record of using sporting events to market. For example, the Euros previously. And I think more than anything, we could feel the excitement of the nation and the fact that it was 64 years since we'd qualified and there was a special story to be told as part of that. And we knew that we could capture that and create a really special campaign.
But you're relatively late qualifiers for the World Cup. So what would have been about 12 weeks that you created the campaign in?
Yeah, 12 weeks.
How on earth did you pull that off?
Yeah, our phone started ringing within about 30 minutes with, organisations going, right, what's going to happen next? I think, we knew we had really special relationships that were there already. For example, with the Football Association of Wales, with the EIR, that's the largest youth organisation in Europe. So there was relationships there that had been, long-standing and had been operational for a while. We also have a strong track record on sport diplomacy that we knew that we could galvanise. And then also we used some of the lessons that we'd used from actually crisis comms situations to create a battle rhythm and to create a machine really to run that infrastructure. But I have to say it was a pretty intense experience.
Glad that
we
you
had
did
a hard
it,
deadline as well. So we knew, that match was going to happen, whatever we were going to do. So, yeah.
And obviously it was quite a unique occasion, but I'm assuming that you tracked all the data that you gathered from that campaign. And how are you going to take that forward into future campaigns? What did you measure, for example?
Yeah, good question. So we measured share of voice, which went up 6%, 40% increase in global mentions. We measured the traditional sort of views on our content, which was 200% above target. But one of the most interesting aspects to us is that we created Llywodraeth Cymru, which was a brand ambassador programme, and that actually delivered for us really, really interestingly, probably the strongest element of all, because of the media relations opportunities that we were able to create out in Qatar. And I think we've got about 17.9 billion opportunities to see through that. So I think that's the biggest thing we've learned, is how to work with the media to create moments, using all the organisations that we work with to tell Wales' story.
That's amazing, thank you. Max, I'd love to bring you back in. And changing tack slightly, are we seeing a rise in responsible tourism?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I think we're all aware about people's passions and interests and being a bit more selective in who we spend our money with, I think there is a general rise in concern about responsible and tourism and travel and making sure that you leave no trace or as minimal as possible. And I think one of the trends that we are expecting to see a bit more of is the idea of regenerative travel. So we know that there is a big impact on travelling, not always positive in many places. And so I think one of the things that we expect to see a bit more of is certain destinations, certain locations, or even countries, saying that we want to limit how many people come in, and we want to put them to work when they're here. We want them to help improve rather than take away from a location. And I think that kind of points to a few different, I guess, passion points from audiences. We care a lot more about the impact of what we do. We know that our peers care a lot more about that as well, I think, on the whole. And particularly when, purse strings are tightened, we want to be a bit more deliberate in how we're spending our money. And I think that's going to point to maybe new ways of filtering the way we search for or the way that we compare different destinations and different kind of holidays as well. Filtering by impact or filtering on kind of local benefit, I think might be something that we start to see a bit more of. How much of my money that I'm spending at this hotel is actually going to the local community or the local area. You travel to some places around the world and it might be a 5-star resort somewhere, but you could really be anywhere that's got a nice beach and is nice and sunny, whereas you don't really experience the location or where you are, or the people around you. And I think we're going to start to see a bit more of that sort of care that goes into that. And some of this starts to translate into media and marketing and some of the choices that we make as those that are spending the money and in communications and media, being more responsible in literally the media choices we make, rather than necessarily investing everything within some big global partners. Are we investing in smaller, more nuanced local publishers that have got, people on the ground in different locations? There are some nuanced choices that we can make there. We can track the carbon of our campaigns. We can optimize media to different metrics so that we're maybe wasting less money here and there. But I think there's definitely a lot that we're seeing across both kind of consumer trends as well as from our side, the media and marketing side as well.
And Pat, are you seeing more interest in different forms of travel?
I think, like I say, I think travellers generally are has come back and they're looking for those experiences. But I think with that, there's a consciousness about how they travel. Our readers certainly are interested in train travel. There's been a lot of traffic for the pieces on the website we have for those, and we're including that, as a sort of how to get there where we can for each destination where it's possible. I think as part of the call list, I said there's lots of rail travel within that. So while HS2 might have been a sort of knockback for the trains in this country, the Eurostar-Thalys merger means that booking tickets and travelling across Europe becomes much easier. You've got a lot of European sleeper trains being launched or coming online the next year or two, so it's much easier to kind of make those links across Europe. And I think with people travelling, in theory, taking fewer trips but travelling longer, that the rail time there matters less. If you're doing those short trips, it can be a big chunk of the travel. So you've got that, and then in the US, there's the Amtrak plan, for 15-year plan, I think is $75 billion investment, which will, in theory, if it happens, really change rail across there, linking up a lot more cities, states, and offering that. And then luxury travel as well luxury rail travel is a growth market. I think Orient Express are launching in Italy next year, and then the Belmon's Orient Express returns in Southeast Asia as well next year. So there's that end of the market as well as having an impact.
And Heledd, how did you incorporate sustainability into your advertising campaigns?
We've got a long-standing sustainable message, which is called AVO, which means promise in Wales. So that was launched pre-COVID, and it's about the responsibilities that we would like our visitors to carry out when they're within Wales. During COVID, it became about the behaviours around COVID, but beyond that, it's around litter, leaving no trace. So that's a core part of what we do. Within our strategy, we've made a commitment to spread the benefit across Wales, also to extend the season. So that's again about the balance between communities and the tourism offer. Within the World Cup, you will have seen that message within our campaigns and sustainable materials. So it's really at the heart of our way of working, because Wales was one of the first countries to have a Future Generations Act. It was the first in the world to have a Future Generations Act, which looks at the responsibilities to future generations for everything that we do. So it's very much a part of the way that we operate in Wales. So you'll see that sort of as a stick of rock that runs through. And actually Wales was named last week as one of the top 10 sustainable locations in the world by Lonely Planet, along with Spain, Ecuador and Japan. That was again around links with rail travel into areas such as Pembrokeshire and cycle paths, etc. So.
Brilliant. So it wouldn't be a panel if I didn't ask about AI and data. So how is technology being used today to really provide an optimum travel experience, and how will it be used in the future? Max, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess the big point here is around data collection, data ownership, how we can maximise the data that we can collect within our context, within our sphere. You know, there's a lot of people tuned in from all over, different categories, different sectors. Having a general view is tricky on what that data could look like. But certainly we're looking to the future and looking to the promises of AI. You know, the growth of the potential of data is exponential. And really the experiences, you know, coming at it from a kind of consumer experience basis, you know, what AI can potentially offer is much more tailored, nuanced interactions between, you know, me as a traveller and the booking sites, the hotels, the destinations, the fantastic publishers that are talking about, you know, putting these kind of, to go back to my earlier point, putting the feelings in my head about where I might want to travel to, that then I can start to look at the facts. And using these sort of AI services or technologies allows me as the traveller to have a more tailored interaction, a more tailored service. And then for those, you know, on the other side, it allows you to personalise, to tailor the services that you offer. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that, a lot more segmentation as well. That extends all the way through from the products that you've got available, the fantastic James Bond tours that you might have for 60 grand, all the way through to, you know, the way that we plan and buy media as well.
Yeah, and once you're actually on holiday, we've seen a lot more like concierge chatbots and things. Now, personally, sometimes I really don't want to talk to anyone, but then there's other times where I think I've paid a lot of money, I want some service. So how much is human interaction part of the travel experience?
I think for some people really important. I think AI will, it is and will, you know, streamline those back-end processes and help airlines and tour operators and so on, you know, kind of make their functions work better there. But then the travel advisors will, in theory, have more time to speak to people. And whether it's whether there are chatbots and whether there is the AI information that helps people plan and kind of have their holidays, I think there's a time when, like you say, you want to speak to somebody, and you don't just want this hyper personalization based on all the tech and data they've acquired, and you just want to say, how do I turn the lights on in the hotel, or, you know, something's gone wrong, you know, what happens next? And I think there'll always be that need for a human touch there.
Fantastic. I'd love to bring you back in, because we've just seen in the news, well, recently, that Wales are going to be one of the hosts for Euro 2028. And I'd love to know more about the role of events in bringing visitors to Wales.
Yeah, events plays a really important part in bringing visitors to Wales. There's an array of kind of indigenous events that are part of the visitor experience across Wales. Then you've got Green Man, for example, that's now a world famous festival, and then all the way to, I guess, the fact that we've got this fantastic Principality Stadium in Cardiff, which is fairly unique in that it's, you know, right in the centre of the city. So that plays a core part, and we work really closely to bring events to Wales. One example would be WWE wrestling. I was not au fait with WWE wrestling until we worked really closely with that team, but that was a really, really interesting experience in that it was televised across the US on Labor Day weekend. So we We brought the event to Wales, and they also have 1 billion social media followers. It was a 67,000 crowd, so it's about the crowd that comes to the city and all the benefits that brings, but it's also obviously a platform for us to market Wales to the world.
Brilliant. And also looking at different ways of bringing more visitors to Wales. You obviously head up the marketing for investment, and I'd love to know how much film and TV plays a part in not only bringing tourists, but investors to actually put companies into Wales and work at Wales. We've seen Welcome to Wrexham and sex education recently, and especially the Wrexham example, because that seems to have just gone huge. So love to know more about that.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time in terms of film and TV, and I think it's a factor for all countries, isn't it? Film and TV, travel. You've seen Dubrovnik and Game of Thrones, and for Wales, the Welcome to Wrexham factor is real. We did perceptions data in a US study that showed people's attitudes to Wales. Having watched the programme, you'd see the positivity go up. You'd see people wanting to book trips. So it's a really positive experience. We're working closely with that team as well behind Welcome to Wrexham. I think awareness for Wales is it differentiates across different parts of the globe, but definitely in the US now. I was there last year, and people were saying, "You're from the Wales, the Wrexham." So there's something quite special happening there. And then we'll see on our website, for example, if sex education was airing, you'll see that search go up very clearly on our sites the day after. So we work really closely with Creative Wales as part of our team who bring film, TV, creation companies to Wales to film. So we're able to work really closely with them as well, HBO, Netflix. So it's a really exciting time for Wales, definitely from that perspective.
Brilliant. So we're just about to wrap up on the panel session. So do keep those questions coming in, so we go to the audience Q&A after this. But Heledd, Max, I'd love to have your views on what the future of travel marketing will be. Max, do you want to start?
Well, I mean, just to build on the points that you just made about some of the kind of entertainment integrations you've got. I mean, it's one of the areas that I'm really excited about, is the power of entertainment to tell interesting stories, tell different types of stories that, tweak emotions rather than just, here's the destination, here's what you can do. It's, here's what it represents, here's some of the history of it, great stories around the World Cup, and, some of the fantastic kind of patriotism that we saw in some of the songs that were coming out of the fans and all of that. All of those sort of things powered by entertainment marketing. I think it's a really interesting opportunity. Barriers to entry within that are kind of lowering, as things get slightly cheaper to make, as there is more demand from the big entertainment platforms for that sort of content. So I think sort of in the immediate term, I'm really excited about that. I guess I should probably plug some trends that we've just produced as Denstu. So a few weeks ago, we released our trends for 2024. If you search for Denstu Trends 2024, you will be able to find them. And there's a couple of trends in there that I think are probably kind of worth talking about. One of them is what we've called concierges everywhere. So we're talking about AI, and we're talking about the ability to have kind of conversations through technology, which frees up people's creativity and customer service to do other things. But also that probably leads into greater expectations for more than just the service that you would normally expect from the companies that you're dealing with. I want to understand the best vacation or the best trip that's across different places. I also want to understand the complementary things that I could do within that as well. So I think one of the areas that is exciting, challenging, is to think, what do we offer? How could we extend that out with complementary partnerships as well? So I think that's an exciting area. And within media, and I think this kind of extends maybe from travel into almost the whole kind of sector. And you mentioned the Future Lab is this innovation function that I work in at the moment. And what we're looking to do within this function is to look at the future for brands and the industry as well, and see what's going to impact advertisers and marketers. And one of the things that we found, and one of the trends within the trends report, is about the race to monetization. So all of the global platforms are now introducing new subscription models, new ways of paying for ad-free services, or even they are just putting more ads and more formats so that they can make a bit more revenue, which is understandable. The challenge there is more complexity as marketers and advertisers, but actually then the exciting point about innovation is there's more testing, there's more test and learn, there's more ways that we can play around with some of these things that are there. So I think there's a lot of excitement, whether it's from entertainment all the way through to having a more kind of defined testing strategy. And of course, AI will play a role in all of our lives.
It will indeed. Heledd, what would you like to add to that?
I would say that personalisation of marketing message is becoming more and more important. I think, the days of the kind of big cinema ad where you create one hero and you stick with that, there's a place for that, but we're seeing that we are needing to create bespoke strands of marketing to channel into different parts of our audience, particularly within UK. Dogs are huge. Extended family experiences are huge. Responsible use of data remains, and I think is becoming more and more of an issue. So I think those are some of the things that are coming through for us for sure.
Brilliant. And Pat, the final question goes to you. So if we can fast forward to 2030, what changes do you think we'll be seeing in consumer travel then? Will we be ready for space travel, or is that too near?
Well, I mean, you could argue much of it will stay the same, but I think AI, as Max says, will definitely play a part. And then it's technology, how fast the technology kind of catches up. Really, space travel is happening, and I think there's a trip you can take now. There's a French company planning to launch something next year, I think, where you can do a 6-hour space flight for something like £120,000, and you can see the planet from outer space. Up to the billionaires race of who can do the space tourism first, whether it's Elon Musk or Branson or Jeff Bezos. So and again they're starting in the hundreds of thousands through to the millions. So I think for a lot of people, space travel might happen, but it's going to be it's for the rich for the first few years. There's a space hotel that is slated to launch in 2025, but again, I think that's been postponed for a few years, so they might happen.
You might get an editorial trip there?
I mean, I'm always always open to opportunities. And then, people talk about driverless flying cars, and whether there's, supersonic or hypersonic planes, if we can fly to Australia in 2 hours or 4 hours. Some of those things are being tested, but as ever with the future of things, it's hard to tell.
Brilliant. Well, thank you all for that. So let's move on to the questions from the audiences. First one's coming in from my colleague Caroline Boccarossa at BBC Studios. And Caroline, it's a question for you, Heledd. Wales has both a large UK domestic audience to target as well as international markets. How do you differentiate the campaigns, or do you use similar messaging?
Okay, good question. A great campaign is a great campaign, I think. But what we tend to do is that we will create bespoke for UK, and then we will then tailor the message. For example, we know in Germany, the walking market is huge, landscape. So we will then sort of put add-ons in that build on our core campaigns. We might then also go into partnerships, brand partnerships, for example, to target. We had a partnership with Matador that was live for US. So we'll kind of use different techniques for different markets. But the message around Wales is kind of core, landscape, heritage, adventure sits at the heart of the way that we market.
Cool. And I'll open this question out to the whole panel. Other than Wales, what would you consider to be an amazing example of travel marketing?
Going back about 15 years, probably New Zealand, I think, has always done a very good job of segmenting the type of travellers that go there, the type of needs, interests, people that they are, and rather than doing blanket kind of campaigns, been very focused on particular types of travellers from around the world, knowing that A, the distance, and B, the type of experience they offer means that it's quite distinct. So I think, New Zealand's always stood out for me.
And Max, as I'm waiting for more questions to come through.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think about the component parts when I'm trying to think about kind of the consumer experiences that we create to market, or communicate to audiences. And I think looking at that, it's the destinations that test, it's the destinations that allow interactivity rather than just here is what we've got to offer, take it or leave it. And I think that's kind of where I see the most kind of excitement and the most interest within the sector.
Cool. Well, I don't have any more questions from the audience at the moment, but I'll open up with one for myself. Is how, from a marketing point of view, there's a lot of heritage brands in the travel industry, and how do you feel, should they play into their heritage, or should they be looking to attract new audiences from going in different directions and maybe being more creative?
Yeah, I mean, I think playing into the heritage will suit a lot of audiences. I think understanding what people actually kind of care about, what their motivations are, is obviously really important here. In some markets as well, you have more of a kind of a trust or an attention around certain heritage brands. Others, what heritage means and kind of what luxury means as well is obviously kind of different depending on the generations you've got. So I think having a tailored message, having a tailored experience is really important there.
Fantastic. Okay, well, as soon as we've got no more... Oh, we've got one more coming in, sorry. I'll send it over as quickly as possible, or do you want to just shout it out?
Julie from Insider says, my family holidays in the beautiful city of St David's in Wales every year, and a huge group of us, over 100 generally, go there. We're always mindful of the impact we may be having on such a tiny city. So my question would be, how can we add to the local area that is hosting us, apart from the leave no trace ethos?
Cool. In case the mics didn't pick that up, it's looking at the level of when there's group tourism, which especially you'd get with when you're hosting large events, and the impact that can have on small cities and their communities. An example that was quoted was St David's, which is, I think, is it the country's smallest city?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Good question. But buy local in terms of your food. Shop locally, eat locally. Is one. I think, I'm sure the person that's asked the question will know this, around, picking up your litter, closing your gates, countryside code, all of that stuff. Think about how you travel there. Think about how you move around when you're there. Just think about being good neighbours when you're in the community. So all of those things, really.
And from a country tourism perspective, are you looking to try and take visitors away from the to-do list, like the Snowdon and stuff, or do you not want to spread them out too wide across the country? Is it easier to have people in one place, or do you want to spread out tourism across the whole region?
No, we definitely want to be spreading out across the whole region. At the moment, it's Year of Trails in Wales. So that's a campaign that's around combining some of the better known locations with other locations that maybe people haven't heard of. So for example, in Eryri, there's all kinds of other fantastic mountains that you can that you can try out that's not Snowdon. So we definitely actively, that's part of our responsibility, is to spread the tourism out, for sure. Yeah.
Fabulous, thank you. Well,
I have a very quick question, and I think this will apply to lots of different countries as well. You mentioned dogs. What is the dog strategy?
Oh, the dog strategy. Well, the dog strategy is that we know that a lot more people now have dogs. They want to travel with their dogs. So it's around working with the industry to have them show the facilities that they have available, because what we find sometimes is that people don't shout enough themselves about what they're able to offer, both from a sustainable perspective, from a dog perspective, self-catering, obviously massively popular with dogs. So it's around just demonstrating what's there really within Wales.
Transparency, more openness, more awareness of what you're offering, whether it's for dogs or for anybody else.
Yeah, exactly. And also letting the industry know that more people have dogs, so that they can then make a decision on if they want to make any adaptations within what they offer. Dog ice cream.
Wow. Questions coming from Max. You mentioned the growth of work vacation. What opportunities stroke trends do you predict for 2024?
Within workcation, yeah. So I think one of the things we saw during the pandemic was that obviously working from home, people would just probably move back to where they originally came from, spend more time with their family, and work remotely. There's more legislation now that kind of limits how much time you can spend working in a different country. But I think one of the trends we'll see is where you can have flexible work, where you work in industries that maybe you can work in different time zones, and that can be one of the things that is a kind of a unique selling point for a role. I think we're going to see people kind of flocking towards more of those industries, more of those jobs. So actually it's less about marketing and it's more around kind of retention of people and being flexible, that we can have that opportunity to travel and balance work and play as well.
Brilliant. And Will Nicholson has sent in a question, so thank you, Will. It would be interesting to hear about how the global cost of living crisis will affect travel next year.
There was a report from ABSA last week, or actually earlier this week, the Association of British Travel Agents, which suggested that most people will be spending the same or more on holidays next year in 2024. And I think that reflects the trend of the past 10 or 15 years where travel might once have been a luxury. Now it's something that people don't go without. So I think they tend to cut back in other areas and make sure they have at least that one trip a year. And I think lockdown and COVID meant that people have explored the UK more. So there may well be more exploration of the UK or Europe as well. But I think people are still taking those trips.
Brilliant. And I have a question from Anna Maria Palacio. I work for the cluster of tourism in Medellin, Colombia. Many people are coming to the city, digital nomads and all type of travellers. We weren't prepared for this dynamic. How can we advertise to bring the type of traveller that add value to the city rather than ones that don't take care of the city?
I think all destinations are realising now that we're in a really different space, aren't we, to where we were 5 years ago. So I think every traveller knows that they can be expected to have to think more about their behaviour. I guess it's difficult to target if you haven't targeted them when they're on their planning journey. And then I guess you have to do it in situ, and that's where maybe AI would come in the future, or chatbots, or maybe sort of social media targeting when they're in city. But I think it's something that would have to become more and more part of the way that we operate. And it's interesting now where I think generally there seems to be kind of less of a trend maybe for in situ tourist information, and it's more kind of on your phone. So I think we'll need to be thinking about how we evolve within that space as well.
Brilliant. And a question from Jad Al-Salim. It's quite a challenging question. Some countries, for example, Italy, are enforcing extra fees to combat over-tourism as locals are feeling their destination is so busy and chaotic throughout the day. How do you see this regulation?
I can talk a little bit about the fact that there are tourism levies being looked at for Wales. So that is actively,
with the same.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's other locations within the UK that have, I think Manchester already have that. So we're absolutely looking at a levy.
It does seem quite sensible with the extra costs that are involved on trying to keep everything sustainable for tourism. So that's interesting. We'll watch that one. And we have our last final question from Belinda Barker from the World Media Group. Is there a trend towards more mindful travel, yoga and trekking holidays? I think, Pat, that seems one for you.
I think during lockdown, sort of post-COVID, people were definitely thinking, more mindful of, wellness and mindfulness, and B, just getting into the sort of great outdoors really, and escaping and being away from things. So I think there's definitely a trend, as one of many trends, as to being more, at one with nature, if you like. Maybe more sort of solo trips. Definitely, there's a rise in wellness and the mental health kind of awareness of things, where people are taking time to look after themselves, and travel is part of that now.
Brilliant. Well, all that's left for me to do is to thank my wonderful panel for today. Heledd Owen from the Welsh Government, Pat Riddell from National Geographic Traveller, and Max Askwith from Denstu International. So thank you everyone for joining us.